until the afternoon, and heads rolled on the field like pebbles.
By evening, weakened and facing defeat, the Ottoman army took flight. Only the Janissaries remained.
The Janissaries sought out a place at the foot of the mountains among some gorges and tall heather, so that the enemy could not notice that there was any trench before them. And leaving the first trenches, they pretended to take flight.
As the Hungarian king pressed on, one of his generals tried to stop him.
You don't want to fight the archers in the hills, for they will kill your horses and your men will be lost.
No two Janissaries carried the same weapons, save for the bow. Bukri Haydar had long ago mastered the skill of archery. From far off, his arrows rained down on the Crusaders.
The king marched straight upon them, wanting to crush them swiftly. Thus, this gorge became completely full of cavalry. Then, leaping out, the Janissaries beat them and killed them as they wished.
In the thick of the fight, Bukri Haydar faced a resplendent knight.
This Janissary, having noticed the fine armor and the feather and clasp on his helmet, cut off his head and brought it before the Sultan, and throwing it before him said, "Fortunate lord, here is the head of some famous enemy of yours."
It was the King of Hungary. The Janissaries had routed the Christians, but the casualties were so terrible that the Sultan vowed, "May Allah never grant me another such victory." Bukri Haydar was rewarded with promotion. Returning to his barracks, however, he lived a monastic life. As a slave, he was forbidden to drink, gamble, or marry. All his time was spent training for war. Better prospects would come only by distinguishing himself before his master, the Sultan.
They have their task in common. At night to lie near the Sultan and take the night watch silently. Rain or snow, winter or blizzard, each must remain in his place. Each night 50, and 100 when necessary.
Even slaves had to be kept satisfied if their loyalty was to be kept. Bukri Haydar received an allowance for weapons, a bonus whenever a new sultan took power, and his regular wages.
Wages are paid by the imperial court every quarter year in full and without fail, and it also gives them clothing once a year.
The Sultan's money was well spent. Fear preceded the Janissaries. Victory followed. Their very music, crashing cymbals and pounding drums, was dreaded. Unstoppable, they swept through the Balkans like a scythe. Bukri Haydar served under a corporal in a squad of 10, with its own pack horse, tent, and treasury.
They are diligent and get up early in the morning. They are frugal when on the road and live on only a little food, a little badly baked bread and some raw meat.
Their camps were well kept, their latrines well ordered, their ranks well disciplined. Cowardice, disobedience, and desertion were punished by death. Yet so devoted were the Janissaries to Allah and each other that it was said 10,000 of them could be led by a thread. Nine years after the Battle of Varna, the Janissaries came to the last bastion of Christendom in the East, Constantinople. Like his forefathers, the new Sultan, Mehmet II, had long eyed this prize. 30 years before, his father had tried to take the city and failed. Mehmet would prepare better.
In March 1452, Mehmet Bey the Turk set about building a fine castle 6 miles from Constantinople, towards the mouth of the Black Sea. It had 14 towers, of which the 5 principal ones were covered in lead and very strongly built. And it was made for the express purpose of taking the city of Constantinople.
Towering over the straits of the Bosphorus, this citadel blocked any ship from sailing into Constantinople. The Turks called their new fortress the Throat Cutter. Surrounded and outnumbered, the defenders of Constantinople placed their trust in a double wall, 100 feet wide, surrounded by a moat. Against the Turks, it had always proved impregnable. By sea, the city was protected by only a single wall, but it too was unapproachable. A heavy iron chain, slung across the narrow stretch of water called the Golden Horn, sealed off the harbor from Turkish vessels. On April 2nd, 1453, the first troops came into sight of Constantinople.
The Sultan approached and placed his forces so that they extended from one sea to another.
On a hill near the city, the Sultan made his camp, ringed by thousands of his warriors.
The ground was completely invisible, being covered with Turks, particularly the Janissaries, who were the fiercest of all the Turkish soldiers.
The Turks unleashed a thunderous bombardment. Huge chunks of the city's wall